I spent £730 building my first PC back in 2020, and the thing's an absolute video editing beast. I love it. Now I needed a second PC, so here it is. Both PCs were built with video editing in mind. This one, I tried to build it on the cheap. In total, it cost me £610, although I got the power supply for free. And since it's 2021, with the Bitcoin miners just having unlimited amounts of money, computer parts are obviously ridiculously expensive right now, even on the used market. So I think I got some good deals here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I really wanted to try and build a PC that was significantly cheaper than my first one, but without really losing performance. And now that I have more of an understanding of what I'm doing, hopefully I think I did a good job, as you'll see in the benchmarks later on in this video. And just a word of warning for those of you that are PC build geeks, be warned, this video contains some absolutely atrocious cable management. So yeah, let's get into it. So timestamps are in the description. Feel free to skip ahead, and let's quickly talk about the parts themselves. So as I said, prices are super high right now. I paid £610, but I reckoned I probably could have saved, 100 quid or so at least had I done this, build 3 months ago. So let's talk about the case. I reviewed this case on my channel already. It's the ionz KZ16 case. I really like the design, and the fact that it comes with 3 light blue fans are just amazing. All of that for £36. I absolutely love it. So let's talk about the GPU. I got this one on eBay for £135 used. It's the Gigabyte GTX 960. It's a 4 gig one. I wasn't sure if I needed a powerful 8 gig GPU. On my last computer build, I got an 8 gig one. And considering I don't game at all on my PC, it's purely just a workstation for video editing and running things like MATLAB. I was thinking that the CPU is going to be more important than the GPU. Obviously, the issue with used GPUs is that it could have been used for mining. And although I don't know anything about GPUs, I figure I'll just take the risk. And if it lasts only a year, I'm sure it should probably go longer than that. But if it does only last a year, hopefully prices will be normal again by then, and I'll be able to get an 8 gig one brand new. What's funny is that I got an 8 gig MSI Radeon RX 570 for £140 brand new on Amazon 4 months ago. It's crazy. So as soon as those kind of prices are back again, and I can just pay £140 for a really good GPU, I'll pick that up. But at the moment, those MSI Radeons RX 570s, they're selling used on eBay for £200 to £250. So yeah, I mean, for me, not needing that powerful of a GPU, this GTX 960 for £135 used, I'm very happy with that. So for the CPU, this is actually a bit weird. I bought this bundle from CCL on eBay. It's the Ryzen 5 3600X CPU, and then the motherboard is the Gigabyte A320M S2H motherboard. In total, altogether, it cost me £250. So I basically look at it as I paid 200 for the CPU and 50 for the motherboard. What's weird is that it came with no box and fully installed, with a letter saying that they fully tested it and they even overclocked it. I found that a bit weird, as obviously it was sold to me as new, which I guess, it is new technically, but it's used as in slash tested. I don't know, but I don't like the fact that it didn't come with a box. I find that weird. I really don't like the motherboard though. It's tiny and it's super awkward. Building it was an absolute pain in the backside, and there's only 2 RAM slots. I'm not a fan of the small motherboards. I get they're used sometimes, obviously, but I just went with this because I wanted the Ryzen 5 3600X, and this was the cheapest way to get it. And I thought, the motherboard doesn't have that much of an impact. Keep the cost down of the overall build. So regarding the CPU, I really didn't want to cheap out on it. There are some amazing Ryzen CPUs, and although the prices for these are even high as well right now, I know that when it comes to video editing, most of it is CPU performance. As you'll see later when I do a test export of one of the videos, you'll see that the CPU is pretty much going to be maxed out when it's exporting the video. On my last build 4 months ago, I went with the Ryzen 7 2700X, and that CPU is absolutely perfect. I love it. So apparently this Ryzen 5 3600X is 7% faster than the 2700X. I don't know if I'll notice that, but I'm currently using this new PC to edit this video, and the CPU performance has been perfect. Selecting RAM is where I feel like I really did well on this build. So my last build had 32 gigs of RAM at 3200 megahertz. This build has the same 32 gigs of RAM, however at a lower speed of 2666 megahertz. What again, as you know, prices are high right now, so I paid 116 4 months ago for the 3200 megahertz. The price for that now, up from 116, is £155. So I decided to downgrade the speed a bit, save some money, and I bought this 2666 megahertz for £110. According to Linus Tech Tips, the RAM speed doesn't make that much of a difference, especially if you're not overclocking, which I'm not planning on doing. So, alright, for the SSD, I just went with the cheapest 500 gig NVMe one I could find, which was this Western Digital one. This will just have the operating system on it, so I won't need any rapid speeds or anything like that. It cost me £53, which is way less than the £95 that I paid for my Samsung Evo one that I got of the same size 4 months ago. For additional storage, I got this cheap 120 gig SSD, which I'll be using to store all my video clips on during the video editing process. I don't actually need more than 10 gig for that, but since this one for 120 gig was only £15, I went with it. Once I'm done editing a video, I clear out the SSD anyway, so I'm not storing anything on it. It's literally just for me to use for clips whilst I'm in Adobe Premiere Pro. I also got these two hard drives used locally. Both of them are 1 terabyte each. I bought them from a car boot sale, which is like a garage sale in the UK, but like in a field or in a car park where everyone opens the back of their car. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I paid £5 for the large hard drive and I paid £2 for the small one, and they both work absolutely perfectly. So for the power supply, shout out to my brother Shaq for this. He had this in his room for the last 2 or 3 years, just collecting dust, and he gave it to me. I think it didn't fit in his PC or something like that. It was the Aerocool integrated 600-watt power supply. I don't know anything about them as a company. I just know it's non-modular, so it has a bunch of cables, which really messed up my cable management for this build. But I'm super glad to see that it has that bronze 80 rating. So the integrated 600 watts, they're £45 on Amazon right now, if you're interested. I don't know if any of you want to see this, so I'll do a rapid like 30-second, 1-minute time lapse of me putting this together. I'll also upload the full unedited version of this video so you can see how terrible I am at this kind of building and stuff. For example, look at me here sticking the GPU onto the motherboard whilst it's on my desk. Obviously, like this, there was no way that I would have been able to mount this onto the case or even connecting the SATA cables. A point that I do want to mention here as well is that what I learned from building my last build is only install the M.2 SSD into your motherboard and leave out any of the additional storage that you have, so the SSDs and the hard drives. This is to make sure that Windows installs onto your M.2 SSD and it doesn't install onto one of the hard drives or SSDs. I just found that with my first build, it was a problem and I had to disconnect all of the hard drives. Once you've installed Windows and everything's up and running, then you can just connect in all of your hard drives and SSDs. Also, as I mentioned in the beginning, the cable management in this PC is an absolute joke. So personally, for me, I'm not bothered about it, which I know is kind of criminal to say on the internet these days. But the PC will spend its life right next to my feet, so I'm not too bothered about how the cables look. So this is always the most nerve-wracking part for me. I have visions of the power supply just surging and blowing out my CPU, RAM, motherboard, GPU, the whole lot. Thankfully, in this instance, I just turned it on, booted fine, no problems. Windows worked straight away as well, so all good for me. Okay, so let's talk about some problems. I mean, I don't know what it is, but the fans on this thing are so loud, and it just constantly goes from like okayish kind of silent to very loud, ramping up and down the speed like crazy. And you know, like sometimes I turn on the computer, fans are full blown 100%. I don't know if the cooler in this one is different to the Ryzen 7 2700X. I'm assuming it's the same, but at the same time the lights are different, so I'm guessing maybe it's a different cooler. I don't know. But there must also be a problem in my settings. I did check the motherboard settings and I looked at the fan mode and it was set to normal mode, and then it gives me additional options for silent and full speed and manual. So I selected silent and that was fine. It was silent, but then I thought to myself, well, isn't it going to heat up? So I switched it back to normal, but I think again I'll probably change it to silent because even as I'm recording this now, the fans are just blowing full whack. Let me try and see if I can get it on audio for you. So I didn't do anything to that audio. I just left it as is, and that's literally the sound that I could hear underneath my desk. And at the moment, it's ramping up and down probably every 30 seconds or so, which is just nuts. Anyways, secondly, and this one's quite funny, I spent about 45 minutes trying to put the back GPU covers onto the case. I tried a whole bunch of different bolts, but I didn't have enough small bolts and the screws to go with it. I wasted so much time doing this. It was a joke. I think I was just tired after the whole build and everything. And I initially decided that, okay, I'll just leave the case off. But then I realized I've got very young children. Eventually, they're going to get to the case, and 100% there's going to be some Lego or something going in there. So I thought to myself, nope, let's get this cover on one way or another. And as you can see, we opted for blue tack. Definitely this Instagram PC with its cable management and now blue tack on the back of the PCI cover slots. Hilarious. This is not an Instagram worthy PC at all. Okay, so let's do some testing of the computer then. We'll run a 10-minute basic Cinebench test. I know it's not technically the best stuff you could do, but I don't know that much about benchmarking, so forgive me for the basic test here. So I did a 10-minute test comparing this PC, i.e. the new one I built, with the one that I built 4 months ago with the Ryzen 7 2700X. After running the 10-minute test, it was a bit strange to see that the new PC scored better in the results. But weirdly enough, which I find is very strange, the results took longer to be displayed on the test. The old PC that I built 4 months ago, it finished with a lower score, but then it finished in like 10.5 minutes, whilst the new PC took like 11.5, 12 minutes to display the actual results. So I'd say that's like a tie, I suppose. All right, and then the main reason why I actually bought this PC was obviously so that I can video edit, right? And then also so that I can export. So let's do a quick test showing what it's like editing the video. I'll show myself editing this video, just show you what it's like scrubbing through the clips, etc. And then we'll do an export test afterwards. Okay, so final part of this video, I'm basically editing the video now. And obviously I bought this PC to do video editing. So I've set my resolution here to full. And I'm just going to scrub through it. So let's play at like 3 times speed. Let's have a look at what's going on in our task manager. So I'm obviously recording this video as well. So our GPU is flying. So I didn't think I needed a good GPU. I was actually considering not buying a GPU this time. But here you can see the CPU is just going at only 30%. Right? RAM, I'm only using 11 gig, which is weird. Usually I'm using more than that. I don't know why my hard drive's flying. I think that might be due to Dropbox. Yeah, okay, I've got Dropbox syncing a bunch as well. So this is quite an intensive load. I've got Dropbox syncing. It's downloading 4,500 files from my Dropbox, and that's all going to this hard drive E. So the CPU is still, you know, look, I'm going through, and look at this, yeah. It's playing at full resolution and on 3 times speed. Like, that's insane. And the computer is still usable. This thing's a beast. So I'm recording on OBS. I'm surprised though. Look at the GPU usage. It's high. 89%. So what that tells me really is I need to upgrade this GPU basically. So yes, I could use this, and to be honest, I mean I probably won't upgrade it, but I think I might, you know, when the whole Bitcoin hype dies down a bit, or maybe they release some new GPUs, I might try and get an 8 gig one instead. I'm actually really intrigued by this. The CPU is doing fantastic. It's not going over 35% at all. The GPU is a bit concerning, but I mean overall, look, if you're doing video editing, I've recorded this footage in 4K off my phone, right? So it's, you know, large file sizes, you know, and look, I haven't put any effects or anything on it yet, but as it's going through the footage, look at this, it's rapid. This is nice. What a great PC. Alright, so let's just end this video off with a quick video export test as well. So I've got a YouTube video here which is just under 10,000 meg. I've got it set at YouTube's 4K settings and it's 32 minutes long, all 4K footage. I'm going to export it now and just take a look to see what kind of preview times it gives me. So usually if I give it about 10 minutes, it'll settle down. So just quickly take a look at the task manager whilst it's exporting. So it's saying it's got an hour to export 30 minutes of 4K footage. We've got CPU performance at 100%. Memory is only at 15 gig RAM. And the GPU is fluctuating from, looks like 40% up to 70%. And then after a few minutes of exporting, the estimated time's kind of settled down now to about an hour. It looks like it's about an hour, just over an hour to export the half-an-hour video. And it looks like the CPU is maxed out at 100%, but the GPU is sitting at around 24%. So it seems to me like the GPU is mostly used for scrubbing around footage. So if you're gonna do video editing, you probably do need a good, decent GPU. And I think definitely for me, I'll probably upgrade to GPU. GPU is probably not so important when it comes to exporting, it seems. But it definitely looks like when it comes to exporting, CPU is everything, because my CPU is maxed out at 4.1 gigahertz. So it seems like if I had a better CPU, the exporting process would be quicker. Whilst I don't think if I upgraded to an 8 gig GPU, the exporting process of the video would be quicker. I think GPU would be used for editing the video, adding effects, scrubbing through footage, and CPU for processing. And then memory, it seems like you do need 32 gig of memory, just because whilst it's exporting and whilst you're using it, it's using 15 gig straight away, so you wouldn't be able to use your PC for anything else then. Alright, so that's about it for me. I'll wrap this video up. It's been a little bit of a long one. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you are going to build this PC, my advice is good PC, but go with an 8 gig GPU if you can afford it. Oh, and probably I wouldn't build a PC now. Maybe give it a couple of months. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.